Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5 a.m. club. It's early morning on this March day, and as you can see, it's quiet here in Sydney town. I'm just down here at the rocks, walking through the rocks and heading towards the Museum of Contemporary Art. It's beautifully laid out here. They're doing their utmost to try and build a head of steam so that we can get tourists back down here, and I think they're doing a great job. It's going to take a while to build up this end of town, but yeah, give it time. Sydney will get its mojo back, I'm sure of that. Anyway, let's go on a walk and talk on this still and beautiful morning. I'll look up in the sky there. There's a few clouds. It's not going to be as pretty as yesterday, I don't think, but who knows. Autumn, as I've said before, is a magical season here in Sydney. Probably for me the best season. I heard on the news last night, and it comes as no surprise, that summer this year was the wettest and coldest over the past decade. So it just goes to show, last year we had fires, we had catastrophe, and this year is been characterised by the exact opposite, rain and coolness. Anyway, let's see what we're going to talk about today. I've picked a book summary which is an absolute cracker, a very, very positive book summary, and it's entitled The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker. The Better Angels. So what's this book all about? This book here is a book of hope, and it talks about a couple of wonderful points, and it basically helps us put things into perspective in terms of how life is today compared to life as it was a decade ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And the author kicks off the book with a lovely quote saying that as one becomes aware of the decline of violence, the world begins to look different. The past seems less innocent and the present less sinister. So to help decipher that, what the author is saying here, or suggesting, is that regardless of what the media says, or regardless of what different groups suggest, today the world is a much safer place than it ever was at any time in its history. Violence, believe it or not, violence has been in continuous decline over the past 5,000 years. Just giving you a moment just to allow that to sink in, because it is a very profound point. Because what's happening is that with media, with social media, with the rise of groups of people with a single mind and an equal focus, there tends to be a lot of voice and noise which tries to suggest that the world is a worse place, that catastrophe abounds, that things are worse now than what they've ever been before. But the author here is providing a balanced view to remind us that things have never been better and things have never looked as up as what they are now. So why are things better now, and yet people are trying to make them look much worse than they are. And it all gets back down to ideological wars, according to the author. Even the most well-meaning ideologies can go extreme and turn violent. And why does that happen? Now, why do good people who start with simple ideologies end up getting extreme in their views and even turn to violence? And he says that if you look back over history, there are examples, lots of examples of how good people have turned bad. And the examples include the Christian Crusades in the 14th and 15th century, where Christians fought Christians and killed Christians. The Nazi regime with Hitler, all started in a way which seemed to make sense, but slowly but surely reared an immense ugly head and created huge injustice. And we've also got the Jihad Wars that bring out the worst in people. But the reason behind this, according to the author, is that the greater good has in some way provide justification for violence, because the world, like it or not, is split into in-groups and out-groups. And you get the sense of this on social media, where all of a sudden, you see an in-group springing up, and if you're not in the in-group, then you're in the out-group. And people in these groups reinforce their views. And you see it happening day in, day out. And what social media tends to do is it tends to bring like-minded people together into groups. And what happens with these like-minded people is that because you're interfacing with other people who share your views, you tend to reinforce those views regardless of how silly or how stupid they are. The views get reinforced because you look around and you tend to think that, geez, everybody has the same opinion. And you get this false sense of security that the view that you hold, or the view that you've adopted or inherited from other people in a group, given that sometimes these groups are led by charismatic individuals who are able to influence others through their tremendous charisma that they have. And what they do is they polarize people until they eventually become extreme. Hey, Justin! Anyway, Justin's in his zone. He's a mate of mine that I used to work with at Everleigh, and I see every morning down here pounding the pavement. So what happens is that when you're part of a group and part of a Facebook group, and you want to, because everybody wants to be part of the in-group, nobody wants to be part of the out-group. And with cancel culture, you see a lot of this happening these days, that the people in the in-group want to cancel the ones in the out-groups, because the people in the in-group don't quite realise that they've polarised their views, they've reinforced their views, and they've become extremists in their views. And it's because of this confirmation bias that the more you talk about a point, the more extreme you become and the more excited you become about your viewpoint, until it gets to the point where, as we said before, that it's extreme and can become dangerous. Because what happens in groups, and we'll see what happens in organisations, is that people are infected by herd mentality. Another word for it is groupthink. And for the sake of social conformity, rational thinking falls apart, and you just tend to rely on the group and the thinking within the group, assuming that the group has done its homework and knows exactly what it's talking about. But in reality, the group, all it's done is it's picked a point, and it's just focused on it so intently that all logic and rationale has disappeared completely from the thinking, from the critical thinking. So for the sake of social conformity, and to stay cool and to be able to talk about things which are popular at the dinner parties that you attend, you tend to punish those outside of the ideology with a hope to convert them, even though the ideology you're trying to convert them to is silly, is wrong. But because you've believed in it, because you've been sucked into the vortex, you think that what you're professing, or what the group is professing, is what everybody else should be believing and should be part of. The other thing that we need to be aware of is that society has been getting smarter over time. This may come as a surprise to many people, but there's a thing called the Flynn's effect, which helps us as a society become less violent. Because as people get smarter, as people get more educated, they become more or less, should I say, less violent. And this is called the Flynn's effect. And one thing that nips extreme ideologies in the bud is the reasoning that comes with critical thinking. James Flynn was a scientist, and he described that, he has an observation that there has been a rise in IQ scores which increase 3 points per decade on average. So believe it or not, regardless of what you think, regardless of what people have led you to believe, humanity today, on average, is smarter than it's been at any point in its history. So much so that if you took a teenager, yes, a teenager today, and dumped them in 1910, they'd instantly be smarter than 98% of their peers. So how do people get smarter, do you think? It's been because of improved education. It's been based on the focus of critical thinking. Plus, children today need to navigate more complex environments, which requires them to learn more and to learn faster. And this is a fact. So whilst a lot of us live with the fantasy that yesterday was better, the reality is that today we are much better, much smarter, much safer than what we've ever been over our history. So with increased reason, it allows us to think more impartially, and we tend to generate better outcomes, and to learn more and to learn faster. But the other thing that counters this is that with the platforms of Facebook and Instagram and all the social media, you tend to think that the world is not as I've just described, because groups with groupthink are popping up everywhere, and there is a sense of belief that it's us versus them, and there is an elite group who know everything, and there are others who know nothing. But the bottom line is, as we've said before, there's never been a better time to live in the world than now, and it's a safer place and a better place. And a lot of that has come about because of technological advance, and the author talks about as far back as the beginning of the printing press, which allowed for religious material, for humanitarian philosophy to be spread, which helped decrease violence through education, because it helped reduce the superstition and religious killings. So humanism also condemned slavery. And you look at the world today, and even criminals today are treated with dignity, bringing order and democracy into our everyday life and our everyday world. So I think I'll leave it there for now. It's been a good little chat, and I've thoroughly enjoyed delivering this episode of Jim's 5am Club, because what it does is it brings hope, it brings comfort to those who scratch their head when they listen to all those around them talk about conspiracy theories and seem to talk with such authority that the world is an evil place, the world's a worse place than what it's ever been before. But as we've learnt through history, that there has never been a better time to be a citizen of the world than it is today, regardless of what media tells us, regardless of what extremists seem to think. On average, today, we are better off than what we've ever been before. So thank you very much for joining me on Jim's 5am Club. Let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and most importantly, be a better angel of our nature, and appreciate the beauty of the world that we have today, and the fact that within 9 months the world was challenged by a virus called coronavirus, and has been able to magically, to mystically, to beautifully come up with not one, but at least 6 independently created vaccines through the technology, through the knowledge, through the wisdom of the scientists that we have. And these advances are going to lead to further advances, because each generation stands on the shoulders of the previous generation. Each scientist stands on the shoulders of the previous great scientists that have come before us. So watch this space, and don't be worried, don't be fooled by a lot of the conspiracy theories. We are in good hands, and things will continue to get better as people get smarter, as technology enhances, as we become more networked and connected for the better and not for the worst, and as people practice critical thinking as opposed to getting caught up in the vortex of groupthink and confirmation biases. So thank you once again, and I look forward to coming to you later on this morning at morning tea with another book summary. Don't know what it's going to be or where it's going to lead us, but it's certainly going to put some wind beneath our wings and allow us to live, learn and pass it on. Yassas, Filakia from Jim's 5am Club, and we'll chat again. Take care and stay positive. Yassas.